Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. We're recording this at Monday at 12 o'clock. So the world has been alive for 6 hours. And Parker tells me that it feels like Thursday. Okay. So that's entrepreneurship in a nutshell. My man, Parker, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you, Austin? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing good, my man. I got to go on his podcast and now I'm having him on mine. I find it very interesting. And before we get into your whole story, right? I know you have a lot of businesses. There's this narrative on Twitter right now that if you talk a lot, you have less really going on, and if you're more quiet, you have more. So like they're saying like the guy that's always talking on Twitter has like no business, but the guy in your DMs has like $100 million business. Like you're one of, I'm not saying you're one of those guys, but you're a guy that I was unaware that had so many going on. You could easily not share what you're doing. You could easily not start a podcast and just go down the path. Why have you chosen to start putting out more content and stuff like that?
I think it's interesting, man. Twitter's an interesting space. It's new for me, to be honest with you. And I feel like I don't do much on there, quite frankly. And I've had conversations with other people on Twitter about this. It's like, it hasn't been like a big priority to jump over there and like actually create things until recently, where it's like, oh, well, it's an interesting space. I think you actually pointed out to me when you were on my pod about, it's like one of the few spaces that's positive, generally speaking, yes. Which, in the internet world, it's pretty rare.
Rough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. So I think I really gravitate towards that. And honestly, like the core of me is a sales guy, operation guy. So it's really cool, just as kind of a business nerd, to see a lot of other people doing interesting stuff and sharing kind of their journey and, what's worked for them, or like even some of the threads people do. It's kind of a gimmick a little bit now because it's happened so frequently, but there's still some really interesting value being put out there. So I feel like I like being part of that. I'm just not, I don't think I'm doing it well at all. I would like to. It's just, again, you know how it is. Like I said, it feels like Thursday. You get busy. It's not really a big priority in the day. And then, before you know it, it is Thursday. And then, then it's the next week. And, it's just one of those things I haven't really prioritized. But I really would like to. I just have to figure out how to work that into my weekly cadence.
For me in social media, and it was Gary Vaynerchuk back in the day that got me to realize this, because I'm more of the face of our companies and I'm like dealing with the employees. I just find it as a really nice barometer for trends and kind of just the overall like feeling of business. And like, I read the comments a lot. I'm a big comment guy. Like I'm in the comments, I'm seeing what they're posting. Doesn't mean I'm going that way. Like everybody's like losing their mind about threads. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't care. And sure enough, like 7 days later, like they're back over here. But like 2 years ago, that would have been me too. Like, and now I'm just like, yeah, I don't care. Like at some point you just realize like this is what works for me. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to step outside of my comfort zone. Right. But so you run multiple companies, but kind of tell us about yourself, kind of how you got started and stuff like that.
Okay. How far back do you want me to go?
You can go to 2 years old. It's totally up to you, man. You do what you want to. It's just your
okay. Show. I'll give the highlights. So I grew up in a place called Tallahassee, Florida. It's the capital of Florida. It's a college town, government town, very good family structure, great parents. My dad's awesome. My mom's awesome. I grew up in an environment where my dad had his own small business. He had a body shop business. So we were out there playing with the bumper boxes and pulling dents out of cars and sanding and prepping cars and painting and all that. So I got to see, I say that because I think that's what I attribute a lot of my work ethic to. Growing up, seeing him work his tail off 24/7. So talking about barometers, that's what mine's set to in terms of work ethic. A guy who's, in his 30s, early 30s, he has 3 kids and a wife, and just working his tail off at a business that essentially ended up failing. He was able to sell it, but it failed in 1998 or so. But, saw him just working and working and working. And I didn't really understand at the time, because I was very young, what that entailed, obviously. But I mean, as young as, third grade, I had entrepreneurial tendencies where I was selling pencils and paper out of machines. And then, when I'm 10, 11 years old, I was making these keychains and, selling them for $3 and $5 at local, like, flea markets and things of that nature. And then just kind of progressed through time, high school, had some little businesses, and then kept going from there, really. I was always very curious about business, and I think I attribute a lot of what I do now to being kind of insanely curious about a lot of things. I think insane is probably the way I would describe it, because I've realized at this point in my life, it's not super normal. I think people get interested in certain things, but they, a lot of times they don't necessarily apply to business itself. While I have those curiosities, I would say 90% of my curiosities really are somewhat business related, whether it's business related or personal development related, because they're so intermingled, in my opinion. You have to be able to cope mentally with a lot of ups and downs. There's never some cookie cutter day. And I think that challenge, it still happens now. I mean, there's challenges that go on that they come out of left field, and then it's about your resiliency to deal with that issue, overcome it, and keep moving forward no matter what it is. And that's something that you can't really learn. I was a kind of a bad kid in high school. I ended up dropping out, doing some wild stuff, running with some wild people, making bad decisions. And it really was no fault of my parents. They were great parents. It was just, I got bored in school and felt I was in challenge, and, have the arrogance and all those little things you have as a young man, especially. And, I didn't see the point, and it was really for the best that I left. But I left, and I tried a little bit in the corporate world for a few years and learned a lot in a corporate environment, which I attribute a lot of what I know now and threads I pull now from that period of my life, because I really learned how to run, $100 million business when I was 21 years old, and how not to run a culture, which, and understanding the difference between those two was something I had never had experience with, really. I understood a little bit of the feeling behind that, but I didn't really have a label to put on those two things. So that was a really, really great experience for me. And I still look back a lot to that period of time, because there's so much you can learn from, kids that are 18 and 19, and they always want to start a business because that's kind of the sexy thing to do now, I guess. But I always tell them, go get figure out whatever industry you really want to be in, go get a job there and learn it.
I got a young kid who's interning with me right now, and he's about to graduate college in a year. And I was like, dude, the best thing that you can do is hang near me for a year, because you have a lot of the business knowledge and college knowledge, but you don't know the people, this world we're living in. You're very shut off to what actually transpires in business. I was like, it's a big deal.
That's huge. I wish I had somebody like that when I was his age. I mean,
me too.
I was lucky. I had a few people later on, but I see all these people now. I think it's interesting, honestly. Like, there's a lot of mentorship going on online, especially nowadays. And I'm a big fan. Like, I wish when I was that age, I had people say, "Hey, don't do that. Hey, don't go over there. Hey, don't, go home." That kind of stuff. I wish I had.
I had that life mentor. I didn't even know so much business. I need that life mentorship. You're like, hey, put down that extra drink. Like, walk away.
Hey, it's 3 a.m. You should get out of here.
So something interesting about you before we dive in. Most people that are obsessive curious, which you are, I have a little bit of that in me, get lost in not making the decision, procrastination. But you seem to have the ability to even act within the midst of obsessive curiosity. Is that something that you cultivated? Have you struggled with that?
Yeah, I have struggled with it, because I am curious about everything. Like I said, I'm curious about business, but I'm also curious about history. I'm curious about art. I'm curious about, I'm just very curious. But what I've come I don't think I've actually formally told myself this, but how I kind of approach it now is if I'm curious about something, I can kind of compartmentalize this curiosity and allocate time to explore the curiosity as its standalone bucket. Like as an example, like AI is a new thing, right? Well, new to,
Newish.
you know,
Yeah.
idiots like me. So, AI is like one of those things that's, I think it's super interesting. I think there's a lot of, especially with the abundance of tools that are coming out now that support business operations. I think it's interesting. Now, is it the highest and best use of my time to go through and analyze all the tools? Of course not. No, I should have somebody on staff go do that. And, give me some options and whatever. But I also know, you sweep the floors before you hire somebody to sweep the floors. So I live with that mentality a bit, and I do, and I like it. I like playing with these tools. I like figuring out what they're about, what they do, and the capabilities, because I don't want to be that guy, in the early 2000s where texting comes out and says, I don't want to text, I don't want to be that guy. So basically I'll give you like a real world example right now, like on Instagram. If I'm fiddling around on Instagram for whatever, an hour a day or whatever, if I see some AI video, somebody's explaining something, I'll just save it and just I won't even watch it. I'll say, oh, it piques my interest a little bit. Interesting, save. I'll keep going. And then, maybe once a week I'll pop into the saved and go spend 30 minutes watching those videos and just see if anything's interesting. And then pull that thread. Maybe, okay, let me figure out what that tool is. Let me go sign up for it and see and play with it. So like, that's just one example, but that's kind of how I do it now.
Well, I think what's interesting, because you have so many businesses, and one of the things that I think that you and I uniquely have in common is that we can go deep on many subjects. Like I think because I spend most of my life as the connector and I'm making people think that there's a depth of knowledge in certain areas. But what they don't understand is for the last 6 years in my own businesses, I was the marketing guy. I was the branding guy. I was the ops guy. Like I know enough to be dangerous and to be honest with you, a little scary how deep I can go. And I realize as a true business owner of multiple platforms, you have to understand, is your marketing guy dog shit? Like, is this not working for me? Because, branding has its own layers, right? And I think that enough business owners, and I'm guilty of it. Like when I learned how to delegate, like I delegated too much. Like I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on. And now, and it's like, like we tend to go, there's no middle ground with me. It's like, I go, this is perfect. Let's delegate everything. And then I have no idea what's going on, So
you might not necessarily think about, okay, there's 100 things I can delegate, but there's 3 items that I'm really good at and make a huge impact on the business that I need to keep. That's a line in the sand. A lot of people, it's hard to pick that out, especially when you've been doing everything. But to your point about, going deep on items, I feel like that's extremely important actually, because,
let me give you an as is. Let me give you an as is, because you'll love this. You of all people will love this more than anything. And even my marketing manager said to me after the call, what the fuck was that? And so he has this thing where he does branding, right? This is what he does. He's amazing at it. And he asked somebody, we were doing a big project for a big company, right? And he was branding his personal self and then rebranding the entire business that did hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. And he said, this is a true story. He says, are you all lowercase letters in your name? Are you caps at the beginning and then lowercase? Are you all caps? And he said, for 15 minutes, I went off about what each, like the all caps meant, the lower caps. Yeah. But I went into like the reason why his mother didn't do this and the reason why he chose the all caps. And he goes, in my life, I've never heard somebody articulate the spelling of a fucking name with capitalization. You went into its entire childhood of his coaching. He goes, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But that's like a real thing. Like that's how deep some of this, like you have big company, like that's how deep some of this stuff goes.
Yeah. And it's hard if you're curious. I know for me, anyways, this is a hard part about being curious, being curious about new things or things you don't know about. That's the fun part. The difficult part, which maybe you're describing a little bit, is, being curious to a fault within your own business. If there's something that's delegated and you start getting curious about it, there are levels to that you should take it to and you shouldn't take it to, because if you have a guy in that position and maybe he needs some direction or something like that, and maybe you need to dig in a bit. But if it's something that is out of your wheelhouse, should you really be digging into that, or should you just find another guy?
And and so just so everybody knows, how many businesses do you have at the current structure?
I think a total of 18 right now.
Okay. So you have 18 businesses.
Mhm.
Most of the people that are listening to my podcast either have one or they want to start one.
Mhm.
How did you get from, 0 to 18? And, who were you before you started the businesses?
Oh, my camera just shut off. Sorry.
You're fine. The battery says it's exhausted. That's what kind of day it's been.
Yeah. Tell me about it here. Let me see if I could just jump into here.
You're fine.
Sorry. 1 second. All right. Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. Your question was, how did I start?
Yeah. So most people who are listening either want to start a business, they're on one business. You have 18 now, right? Like who were you before that, and how the hell do you get to 18 business?
Before that, I was kind of a kid who didn't want to be poor. I kind of ran from this fear of being without. And I think I still do, honestly. Running from that fear keeps me, I guess, motivated is the word. And in terms of getting 18 businesses, it was not some overnight thing. I've had more than that, and a lot didn't work out. I've had a lot of little businesses that I tried to get off the ground and couldn't make work. I remember years ago, I had like this tiny business where it would transport people on game day to the stadium. Didn't work out. I had another one, and I tried to do like a concierge thing with it. Didn't work. I had an iteration. So I have one of my companies I started 14 years ago as a marketing agency. There's an iteration prior to that I had that really didn't work. And I just had a bunch of little failures along the way. And then I found some that I could figure out how to make some revenue in, maintain the revenue, maintain the client, whatever that looks like for that business, and then hold on to it and preserve as much capital as I can out of it. But it's funny, years ago, I had so many of these little failures because, as family members, you're like, just go get a job. Everyone tells you that, right? Mm-hmm. I had so many of these little failures, one after another. I remember my brother, I think he told his wife or something at the time. He was like, look, Parker's, he's not making it work right now, but I can guarantee you at some point, one of these things is going to work for him.
Dude, my best friend who's pulled me out of was like kind of like my dad, to be honest with you, because I didn't talk to my dad for 20 years. Sorry, it's hitting me. A year and a half ago, after I was sober for a little bit, he set me down on his back porch. And he said, 9 times out of 10, you're out of your fucking mind. He goes, I've known you since you were 17. He goes, you're almost 40 now. He said, you're fucking crazy. He goes, you're starting this, you're starting that. He goes, I didn't know when you would be successful, but I knew you would be successful. He goes, but what I see right now is a steadiness in your eye I've never seen before. And he goes, a lot of people can't find beauty in the chaos that you've created over the last 20 years. Yeah. But I knew that somewhere, some long, you were going to hit something and it was going to be great. And a lot of people give up before that moment. A lot of people give up and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go pack it in. And then they die.
It's so much easier.
It's so much easier. So much easier.
So much easier. And you're only thinking about that moment of the initial pain of like, this sucks, right? You're not really thinking about, okay, what about 6 months after that when you're settled back into your life and you've got a normal job and then you're driving your car to work every day and you're just like, fuck, you just, that exhausting feeling of going nowhere.
It's not even, it's the feeling, look, I think that, and you've been doing this longer than I have when it comes to the scale you're talking about, but in the last 6 months, I've realized like I'm doing exactly what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I don't need to be anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what would it look like if the group of people that I've accumulated cared about something as much as we did right now, and we just stayed on this path and created freedom? What would that look like in 20 years? Holy crap.
And time is the variable within the equation that most people don't think about, because time, okay, in the beginning, time is like this precious thing because you got to get revenue, right? Like when you build new business, you got to get revenue. I got to pay my bills, right? And then after you get to some level of scale, maybe not, I don't mean crazy scale, just enough, get your bills and whatever, and some employees and whatnot. Once you get there, it's a different level. You start seeing things differently. But you have to become a different person for every new level you get to, or if you're not going to be that person, you need to find somebody to make that work. But I'm going to push back against what I used to say for years, which is, you need to always keep scaling. If you're at a $3 million company, you need to go to 10, you need to go to 20, you need to push. But that is so difficult because people, like, I know people personally who have never had a business. Now they have a business, does a couple $1 million a year, and they're doing good. It's fine.
Yeah.
But there's so many learning things to go from that to 15 to 20, like to 100. It's a completely different skill set. And guess what? They may not be any happier. Maybe they just need to find somebody like part-time them, and then just go live life and be fine.
Anytime I hang out with anybody
000.
from Twitter, anytime I play golf with them, I meet them at a conference. Do you know the only thing we fucking talk about?
What?
You don't really need a scale.
No, you don't have to.
Like what's the worst thing that can happen? Let's just say you got a business doing 3 million and you will grow organically just by learning to 25, 30 million over the 15 years. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, you're fine.
That's a great life. Why?
And it is about time. And you do grow like that. If you outlast your competition, as long as you have the other boxes, even if it's mediocre boxes, if they're checked, if you outlast people, you're fine. You'll make money.
Dude, because you know what? Here's a perfect example. We got a guy in our neighborhood. He doesn't even know me, okay? But he's not a fan, okay? I just know this, okay? So he's probably the only company in a 15 county radius that is the same size as us, okay? Been around the same side. He doesn't know who I am, but he knows I bought it and he ain't pleased, okay? Second generation for him, right?
Right.
So this is a true story. Tries to steal my guys, all that stuff. I digress. I kept all of them. It's not a big deal, okay?
Right.
They don't have the greatest reputation in town, and that's fine. I don't care, okay? I don't care. But we post a lot on social media.
Yeah, of course.
And he starts posting, and he's doing this like subtle dig at me. Even though people don't realize what he's doing, I know what he's doing, okay? I just know what he's doing. And everybody's freaking out. And I said, guys,
it's fine.
He does not have the consistency to post the same like we do. You know how long he lasted? 2 days. 2 days.
That's pathetic.
Dude, because I live my life in consistency and I'm just going to do it day in and day out. And 99% of business owners can't do it.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me. That's why I always joke about like home service businesses and any service business, really, not just home services, but service businesses. There is so much, like if you have operational know-how, right?
The bar is so low.
So low.
It's insanity. It's almost criminal.
Do you know David Trigg?
I don't.
Okay, so he's got a home services company. Interesting company. Homer is the name of it. It's kind of like the intermediary between the customer and the vendor. And they help facilitate pretty much everything you need for your house. But I had him on the podcast recently. A very bright guy, very smart, and a really cool conversation. But we were talking about this, and he was like, you know what? He was kind of like, pitching what the company does. It's like, hey, you know what? If you ever had a handyman who doesn't show up, or you can't get a call back, what does it do? Most people, it frustrates them where they want to just go find somebody else. I said, no, it makes me want to go buy a handyman business and make it good because it's so easy. It's not rocket science.
Let me just lay out some things to you. Just you are going to you're like, oh, I'm going to talk to you after the podcast. My first day, I get into the company, right? I'm running it, right? Before we bought it, like I'm running the CEO. He said, Austin, come run this company. I'm done. The first day.
Did he transition with you? Like
no, I started as no, he's still here, but I started out as a consultant before we closed. I started out running it because he's like, you just run it. Me, people think I don't see stuff, but like I see everything, right? So like I'm just moseying around, introducing myself, and I see this like stack of papers in the corner. And it's like plumbing, HVAC, electric. and I grab them, and like everybody sees me and they're like, uh-oh. So I'm just like thumbing through them and I'm looking at them and I go, I gotta ask a question. Now, mind you, y'all can't see it, but I'm talking about like 2 inches thick of papers. Okay.
Oh,
I said,
God.
what is this? And they go, these are all the jobs we couldn't get to last summer.
Oh my God, dude.
I said, do what?
Oh,
I said, huh? Okay, got it. Noted. We got it. So dude, that day I went out and hired 9 people that week. I was like,
yeah.
oh, we're going to get to them. Oh, we're going to get to them. And so I
Dude.
realized that the opportunity was there. Now, hear me
Yeah.
out though. Hear me out. We hire up, holy crap. And then we have a little gap in business because we caught up to all the work. Oh my God. I got to fire. No.
Sell,
Now I
baby,
built
sell.
up. Now I built up before the scale. And now you got to create more momentum.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that way. They get really busy and then they try to hire up, but they can't train anybody.
Yep.
And then
It's
they get
time's
caught.
limited. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they get caught in this loop and then they can't fulfill their service properly and then they get bad reputation. And
Dude, I have one rule. It's very simple. I will lose money every day as long as you, as an employee, and myself do exactly what we said we're going to do.
Yep.
If we tell the customer we're going to be there and we're not there, you and I are going to have a problem. Simple as that.
Yeah. I just had a meeting this morning, right before this. Had breakfast and we were talking about this luxury business in Miami. And, it's like they're talking about their competition. It's like the people don't even return phone calls. And it's like a $40,000 sale or $60,000 sale. Like people don't even return phone calls. I'm like, that is insane. Like,
dude, I got to tell you, I got a buddy.
Sense.
I got a buddy. This is a true story. Swear to God, my mouth fell off my jaw. Okay. Young kid. He's like 21, right?
Mhm.
His uncle was one of the #1 Texas land brokers for years. Okay. Family run business, 40 years. All the guys, you can imagine all the guys in that business, old school ranchers, cowboy boots, made their money. We're not talking about like selling like 500K. We're talking about selling 3, 6, 60, 80, 90 million. Okay. He said first year he gets into business, all the old guys say, hey man, slow down. Don't work too much. Right. So they literally have $8 million buys sitting on their desk and they refuse to do them. So he says, look guys, here's the deal. I get it. Y'all don't want to do it. I'll give you a referral fee. If y'all don't want to do this shit, you've already made your money. He sold $85 million of real estate his first year.
Yeah. That's crazy though, because it just shows like the competition being lazy is what produces opportunity sometimes. And it's really funny because, some of these businesses, the bar, like you said, is really, really low and it's shocking. Like imagine just buying, I don't know, let's call it a plumbing business, and you add in a tech stack where there's automations and booking and blah, blah, blah. And your sales staff only focuses on sales. And then your reputation management's automated. And all you do is get good reviews. The seller,
I said, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you stop turning down jobs, please? Let me be the one. No, it's cool. I don't care. You've been in the business 50 years. I said, let me be the one to turn it down. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what crawled across our desk? $1.65 million deal.
Yep. It's amazing to me how many people turn off the sales tap when it should never, ever, ever be turned off.
No.
I know of a company right now. It's not mine, but it's a company, a friend of mine I'm helping with. They do 100 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. About a little over that, 130, I think 150, something like that. There's only a few of these companies in the US. I'm not going to name what industry, but they essentially sell products and they have to install these products, right? They're very expensive. We're talking 50, 60, $100,000 products. Okay. They have almost 40 sales staff in the US. They are all oversold for what they can install. So the CEO tells the whole staff on an internal call recently, says, all right, guys, just look, you made good money so far this month. Let's go ahead and, let's push people out a bit. Let's slow down a little bit, to his sales staff. And I said, what the fuck? What? Are you insane?
You know what you never do? You never stop feeding a lion his meat.
No, I was like, that's the most insane thing ever. And my friend who is a salesperson there, he said, dude, I could not believe it. He's like, he's like, I outsold everyone else in the company this whole year, every single month. And he's telling me to slow down.
You have 18 businesses. You have a lot of employees. You know what I realized after coaching a bunch of people and managing people? People only care about one thing. People only care about one thing and one thing only. It's really that simple. If they are not growing, they are gone. Simple as that. If people feel like their ceiling has been met, they might not leave you today, but they will leave.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yep. And the tricky part is like a lot of people. So that's true for a lot of people, but there are hot buttons for those top 20% that are crushing it, that they want more than that. It's not just that aspect of it. They want to feel like they're part of it. They want to, that's where the culture really pays off, in my opinion, is,
there's a million days. And I wonder if you ever have a day like you've already had today. I would love to just be a sales guy, because I would annihilate.
Dude.
I mean, I had to worry about managing people. I would work 3 days a week. I'd be top 1%. I would just mow. Dude.
I know. If it were well paying enough, I would do it right now. But
look, I'll tell you a friend. Tell me you wouldn't get this job. Listen to this. I've never shared this on a podcast. I will not give a name, and I will not tell you what he does.
Okay.
I have a friend that is a hired gun for a couple funds, and he buys businesses for them. This is a part of his third roll up. The first one he did was a billion exit. He gets 10% of all EBITDA he brings in.
I like that.
That's
a good job.
Savage. Dude, flies in, plays golf, flies out same day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that.
He's
that's
like, dude,
job.
It's insanity. It's pure chaos. He goes, I'm going to do this for 4 years. I'm going to make sure my family's taken care of, and then I'm going to go buy businesses with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. I like that.
He's still going to be 38 when that's done.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah,
Can
it's
you
funny.
Imagine he's brought in 15 mil already this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for him. Yeah, I like that a lot. I miss the days when I was just a sales guy doing sales things. It's because that's like an exciting thing, right?
Everybody asked me, they said, what are you going to do when you're president, when you're not CEO anymore? And I said, I'm going to go be the acquisition specialist. They go, what do you mean? I go, I'm going to go buy businesses in rural nowhere. And they go, you're going to do that? Oh, yes.
Why not? Yeah, it's fun.
Dude, my dream is to be worth like 50 mil and still be grinding and working. Like, I just love those, like your job that you love. The thing is I look at you, right? And yes, you make money, and yes, you have businesses, but like the number is just a byproduct of how you feel about what you're doing and where you can sit in yourself, meaning you, Parker, and where you sit now and where you sit 5 years. Like, you might go full circle and you might have 40 businesses, but like, I'm going to do this thing because I love this thing the most. Like, I might train the sales staff. They're like, I don't understand. The owner of all these businesses is training the sales staff. Yes.
And I think that affords the flex, like doing this and putting yourself in a good position. If people are buying companies, afford yourself that ability to go kind of pick and choose things you enjoy versus things you don't enjoy. Right. Like, sales and marketing are my jam. I really love that part of the business, but and I think that's the squeaky wheel that gets most of the grease for most people that are getting into business or in business. But the operations of business, are much more, much more than that, everything from your accounting to your service fulfillment side, your vendor management, all these little pieces of it matter. I think the ones I just like the most are like, how do I get the people to see what I'm selling? And then how do I sell them? I really like that because I'm a bit of a Neanderthal. And I just like the simplicity of, because like one of my most favorite jobs I've ever had was selling RVs and doing finance for RVs back in the day for a company, big public company. And I learned a bunch of tactics. So, mirroring people and understanding, are you amiable? Are you assertive? I want to understand, I want to match what you're doing. That phrase you just said will remind me later. Like, remember earlier, Austin, when you told me this, and this, like framing things in a certain way within the conversation and, all towards the target of what my objective is.
What a fun purchase, right? Like, nobody's walking in and going, I got to have a hip surgery. They're going, they're thinking about all the memories they're gonna have with their kids,
totally.
right? So it's
I
like
always
a
tied
cool
it to
environment
emotion.
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one
100%
time.
ridiculous too.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I wouldn't advise it completely, but if you want to do it and you got the extra change, do it. But I remember one time I had a friend come in and he'd been looking at this camper basically for a few years. And then he kind of put it off and whatever. He came in one time because I was working there and he knew me. He said, looking at, we sat down to kind of run the numbers. I won't say his name, but I said, hey, what do you want to do? Here's the numbers. He's like, I don't know, man. I think we might wait a little bit. I said, we'll call him Bob. I said, Bob. Said, remember earlier when you said that you've been looking at this exact type of camper for the last 3 years and still haven't done it? He said, yeah. I said, why wait another 3 years when you could be out making memories with your family?
Game over.
And he said, all right. And then he got it. But just understanding that simple framework, right? That's just a simple thing.
I'm about to teach sales and human psychology to my sales staff. Like we start next week. So awesome. I'm building out my own PowerPoint. I find nothing more excitable than understanding, and it's not to sell somebody, it's to make them make the decision that's best for their life and their family. I'm not the big companies that are fleecing the old people. No. I'm merely saying, like, there's a way to understand how to make people happy and then appreciate the sales process, unlike feeling like they got taken.
Yeah, and it's more just syncing up what you're offering and why they're there, right? It's okay if you show up to an RV dealership and you walk in and I say, hey, Austin, what brought you in today? And you say, I'm just looking. I say, you're at an RV dealership. You're here for a reason. What can I help you find? It's like you're here for a specific reason. Maybe there's some defensiveness, whatever. Okay, cool. I'll overcome that. But you're there because there's an idea in your head. Somewhere along the line, the seed was planted that this vision of enjoyment, of adventure, of whatever it is, right? Or I just want the freedom of being on the road, or whatever, whatever that thing. That's the salesperson's job, to find out what the real why is, and then tie the real why to the solution, which is the product. And you have to look at it as a salesperson. You have to believe that, and you have to believe truly that you're doing something that will help them, achieve what they're trying to do. And if you don't believe that, it's gonna be real hard to sell. So I think belief is a big part of a very good sales process.
A lot of people aren't willing to make the short-term sacrifice, meaning there are jobs that we do within our company that we're not getting paid for, that I'm paying for the time of the guys, but helping that person out or helping that fellow business person out. When somebody does need that services, they'll recommend us. And so that's, ripple effect. A lot of people just look at the short-term issues.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. I think, there's a lot of ripple effect in everything we do, and it's not always easy to forecast those second and third order effects. You can sometimes, but a lot of times and I think that's one of the things that make entrepreneurship as a whole pretty damn tricky, because something can come out of left field that you didn't expect, and then all the ripple effects from that thing could be, you don't know what you don't know. And those are just things that are out there that are happening, but you might not be aware until it's at a point where it's severe. Yeah. And then you got to really deal with it. So I think that's one of the many things that make operating a business for yourself very tricky. But I still love talking to people that have kind of these rose-colored glasses when it comes to entrepreneurship, because they haven't really done it. They haven't gotten into the weeds of it yet, so they're not tainted. Because a lot of us are just like battle hardened, like just kind of.
My favorite meme of all time. So we had the largest contract by 20x in the company's history on the table. Like, we won it and then we lost it and we tried to get it back. And I had to pull a rabbit out of the hat. It was gangster shit. It was crazy. And my sales guy who's made the sale is freaking out. And all I think about is that meme with James Franco, and he's got the noose around his neck, and he looks over at the guy and he goes, first time. And I go, are you having a fucking blast or what? He's got 80 grand on the line. I'm like, he's like, I'm not having a blast. I was like, I'm having the time of my life.
This is great. Yeah.
He's like, I'm like, will we make it or we won't? And he's like,
Who knows?
he's like, are you fucking crazy? I'm like, yeah,
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, because I know there's another opportunity, even if something happens.
Yeah, and you've been yeah, we've all been kicked around enough to know, like, all right, if this goes away, whatever, man.
Whatever. We'll still be fine. Still
we'll
good.
be all right. Don't worry.
We appreciate the opportunity. And he's like, well, I don't appreciate it.
Yeah. He's like, I got kids, man.
So if people want to listen to this podcast that you started and everything, how would they do that?
The podcast is called Outwork Everyone. It's just everywhere: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, et cetera. And on Instagram, Outwork Everyone Pod is the name of that.
Awesome. Guys, if you like this episode, send it to a friend, share it, and we'll see you next time.